that there's something to the New Orleans scene. It feels like we're on the frontier of something.
New Orleans is a great city for audiences. There's enough of a city that the tourism is part of the city, so you can go to any number of mics or shows as a comedian and expose yourself to a number of different types of audiences. How would I characterize them as a whole? A mixed bag, but willing to laugh, ready to laugh. I mean, it's a town that is ready to party.
I knew it was funny probably somewhere in second grade, where I would use humor to like make fun of the teacher, and I was like, oh, like when I call the teacher like ugly, everyone laughs. Like this feels pretty good. And then I learned it could be a self-defense mechanism when bullies would come around and be like, I'm gonna beat you up, and I'd be like, that's because you're insecure, because you're overweight. And everyone would laugh, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna use this. My mom was really funny. She used to like bust open the door when my dad was pooping, and she would like take pictures of him, and like Polaroids, and like leave those around for her friends. And I think that I'm sure she like passed that on to me.
I don't know when I thought the first time I was funny was. I always kind of felt like I was funny. Like my dad was always funny, my friends were always funny, and we always laughed a lot, and I always thought of funny things. The first time I ever did stand-up comedy, I won second prize in my 6th grade talent show, and I lost to a girl who sang a Wilson Phillips song. I didn't do stand-up again after that incident until I was 30 years old.
My family was really funny, so any clever retort was sort of rewarded. I feel like you could get out of trouble a lot based on if you could make my parents laugh. Maybe my bat mitzvah, that was like the first time I had an audience that laughed at the off-the-cuff things that I said. Probably my bat mitzvah was when I knew I was funny.
If you make your really funny uncle laugh, you don't forget that. That just goes and you're like, okay, I can do this. It was a really highly regarded thing in my family to make other people laugh and to make each other laugh and to be clever and to be quick and to be good with words. That worked really well for me. C.J. Hunt is, nailed it. C.J. Hunt he's like swatting a fly, no? He grabbed the moment out of the air, squish it, and it's his forever, giving disease to his hands. No, C.J. Hunt is a super talent. He's a wonderful writer and an incredible engaging performer, a really good stand-up. He always makes me laugh, he always makes me feel good. He leaves audiences sort of bubbling and crackling. His destiny, I would say, he's gonna end up on TV screens and on Saturday Night Live or some similar highly regarded program that showcases his sort of talent.
You guys are gonna love this guy, love him to death. He's so funny, you're gonna love him. Ladies and gentlemen, C.J. Hunt!
But I was just thinking the other day, I was like, if there is proof of God, has to be the human body, right? Human body is amazing. I was stepping out of the shower the other day and I just looked at myself and I was like, oh, someone made this, right? Like the body's too complicated. Like someone made this, right? Like you look at skin, and skin, you cut it, you like scrape it off, the shit grows back. Proof that humans at our base are resilient creatures, the most resilient creatures on earth, right? Like you look at the heart, if not fucked with, it will beat for 90 years until you die. Proof that God makes a better machine than anyone on earth could ever do. Ladies, you look at your stomach and there is a sac in there that's sole purpose is to grow another human being. That's proof that God wanted you to remember that despite all the shit people say about him, like women are the ultimate creators. You look at the human scrotum, you look at the male scrotum, that's proof that even God just fucking mails it in sometimes. Have you seen one? It's awful. It's just like a diorama that you forgot you had to do and just threw together on the bus. It's like clearly made, just like clearly made in his last day when he's tired after like making all the cool shit. And he's like in his workshop, you know, like where he created the world. And he's like, he's just finishing his project and there's like one angel walking out the door and I can see God being like, ha ha, behold angel. He's holding up the model of the human. He's like, I finished my finest creation. I call him man. The angel's just like, oh shit, because he hates these talks. So he's like, oh, cool, God, like that looks pretty cool. Tell me about it. God's like, well, he will walk upon these 2 legs, and they also have feet. And here's the coolest part, angel. He will reproduce himself by issuing forth a life-giving seed. I call it sperm. Angel's like, oh, cool, where's that come from? God's like, well, glad you asked. It comes from these 2 little balls. Oh, fuck. I forgot to put on the balls. Oh, God. Think. And Angel's like, well, can't you just cut him open and put him back inside? No, Angel, I'd have to rearrange a lot. I'm running out of time. What to do? Angel's like, I don't know. You could put him on the outside? Yes, thank you. I'll put them on the outside. He'll carry them around, like in a bag. I'm an idiot. God's Angel's like, no, bag sounds good. He's like, no, Angel, he'll lose it. Men are bad with bags. He'll set it down and there will go the human race. Angel's like, all right, well, why don't you attach it to his body? Oh, thank you, I'll attach it to his body. There we go. Will you hang it like someplace safe on his back or possibly below his chin? No, I want it to dangle. I want it to dangle precariously. Or it can be, hit by anyone or just destroyed by the motion of his own walking. That's what I want. Angel's like, well, surely we'll protect it in some other way. Will we maybe do as we've done with the head and cover it with hair? Kinda. Real sparse. Let's keep it real sparse. I want it to look fucking ridiculous. And at this point, he's like roping the angel into finishing his work, how you sort of like pass your work on to a coworker. And the angel's like, oh, God, like the materials, what shall we make this sack out of? And God's like, well, do we have any more of that old man skin? You mean the stuff we threw away because its only purpose is to stink and itch? Yes, let's use that. And just as he's out walking out of the door, he has one more idea, and he's like, hey, angel, when you're sewing up that sack, I want you to leave a seam. Just a raw, random seam, unlike anything else on his body, just going right up his nuts. Because one day when this guy gets out of the shower, I want this motherfucker to remember that someone made him.
Oh, stand-up, of course, is an art. The thing that I like most about it is how naked it is. If I'm doing sketch or if I'm doing improv and it doesn't go well, there's this feeling that you can hide behind around like, the vibe in the audience was weird, or we didn't have it together as a team, something was off, something was someone else's fault. But I like how singular stand-up is, and it's kind of addictive in that way that your successes and your failures are your own. So if you're bombing, that's on you, and it's kind of hard to push off onto the audience. And if you're doing well, it feels like nothing else, because you're like, this is the thing I didn't know if it was funny, and I wrote in a coffee shop and was unsure if I was gonna say it until I stepped up here. Like, there's this sense of like, that works. It's pretty cool to be able to see something really raw and just throwing it up night after night and making it better little by little. And that's what I love about stand-up.
Duncan's like a comedy dad. He's the sweetest man, and everyone's so happy to see him, and I think we all just wish he was our real dad. And I have a great father, he's not dead. But like, Duncan's just, he's goofy, and he's silly, and he's sweet, and he's just, you see him and you just smile.
Ladies and gentlemen, Duncan Pace.
I've been with my wife for 10 years, 10 years, everybody. Thank you. I do it for the applause. We don't even like each other. She gets applauded in other rooms. No, we love each other. Long-term relationships are great. Anybody else here in a long-term relationship? Anyone?
Too long.
Yeah. Too long? Well, how many years do you have? 45 years? Oh my God. That's like a Hobbit baby. That's a long time. Good job. How long was too long? Over here. Who said too long? 4 years? What?
No, forever.
Oh, I was saying. He'll be closing out the show.
The way I come up with my jokes is I just sort of stay in a constant, keep my toes sort of dragging in the subconscious a little bit. I just sort of keep a little fishing line out into what's past what's immediately present in my life. So you're dealing with everything right in front of you, but there's just some part of me that's sort of, grazing and trolling a little bit further out, and and then you'll kind of get a little bite, and then it'll send it a little closer to the front of your brain. Brain will start clicking with it, and it passes that, then it'll come all the way to the front of my brain, and I'll write it down or put it on Twitter or put it in my notebook and do it on stage later and that sort of thing. Sometimes they're fully encapsulated math problems that work themselves out, and sometimes they're 3 words that describe a feeling that something tells me is worth exploring on stage.
Long-term relationships are great. You become closer and closer. You become more of a team. You learn more about each other. But it's difficult because the bad things stack up too. Like, your mistakes sort of add up. Like, let's say I'm a great guy and I make 50 mistakes a year. That's 1 mistake a week and 2 perfect weeks. Let's say that's me. Okay, so 10 years, that's 500 mistakes. And my wife remembers all of them, yeah. They're all right here. They're searchable by keywords, cross-indexable. They can get triggered by colors or lights, you know what I mean? Anything could trigger a problem. And some of them aren't even my mistakes either. They're just a mistake I was near that she remembers as my doing. But you can't go back and convince her that she remembered it wrong and that you're right because you're not right, and that's a new you're wrong. So you can't do that, so you just take the hit. Sometimes I see a mistake and I just jump on it and I'm just like, everybody move! I was the one who put the spoons away wrong. I did it! I clearly don't love our family! I was the one who walked on the bathroom rug. We don't put rugs on the ground to be stepped on. We put them there as an agility test.
I love Leon. I love mainly, I think he takes care of everyone. So one, as a community member, I think he just I think he really takes care of the community and is throwing opportunities people's way so many times of just, hey, let me get you up on this show, let's do this. And I've seen him bring a number of new stand-ups into their own.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome my friend, the very funny Leon Blanda.
My daughter said fuck the other day. She's 2. She said, and I couldn't get mad at her because she used it properly. She's super smart. She says her ABCs forwards and backwards because she gets pulled over all the time. And she said, fuck. And this is what happened. We're at home. I'm still wearing pajamas. She's just wearing a diaper. We're getting high, watching Curious George. Mom's at work. We don't have anybody to impress. We're just hanging out, And she's got one of these, and parents, you'll know this, she's got one of these little cookie jar things, and it has some teeth on top. It's got a little top with teeth on it where she can fit her hand in and get 1 cookie at a time, but she can't spill all the cookies out or make it rain cookies or do whatever the fuck she does to why I find cookies everywhere. She can't do that with this brilliant contraption. So I see her, I walk into the room, and she's got her back to me. She's got her back, which is never a good sign when a child is not. She's got her back to me. And like I said, she's just in a diaper. Just a little fat gut, little diaper, little fat legs. Classic sexy baby. And she's straining. I see her, she's and she's sweating. Have you ever seen a baby sweat? It's disgusting. And she's turning red, and I see her, and she's just fuck. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Because that's my fault, right? And you can't say, stop saying fuck to a baby. Because if you say fuck to a baby, you're just like saying, hey, say fuck. So the next time you're in the grocery store, she's like, hey, Daddy. You're like, yeah, baby. She's like, fuck broccoli. You're like, yeah, that shit sucks. Let's get out of here. We gotta go. You can't stick around so people hear you saying that. You can't say stop saying fuck. You gotta go, young lady, don't do it. It's always young lady. If you have a little girl, always young lady. Little boy, you can call him whatever the fuck you want. Little boy, you're like, hey, stupid. Hey, shithead. Hey, get off the fucking shed, you idiot. My dad called me a cocksucker once. I was holding a flashlight for him, and he called me a cocksucker. And I'm fine.
I don't have any spare minutes. I have a job, a full-time job, which affords me time to do stand-up comedy. I also have a full-time child, which affords me no time at all. So when I'm not at work or doing a show, I am at home being a dad and a boyfriend. I like spending time at home because I spend so much time away from home. My kid's really funny. I get a lot of like joy from her that I never got in the rest of my life. I don't know where she got it from, and she's really mean. I fill my spare time with my kid and my family, and I hardly have any spare time. So yeah, I mean, comedy is my fun. You know, that's me going out. When I go out to an open mic, that's me going out for the night. You know, when I go out to a show, that's me going out. I don't go out and get drunk. I can get drunk at my house after the kid goes to sleep every night.
Ariel's just a real badass. Can I say curse language on this? Ariel's a real badass. I think there's a thing to being fearless about stand-up, and I've seen Ariel just be so fearless. So some of the jokes that she talks about, as you know, I think as people on this will see, are really just like, I'm here and I'm pretty great, and you're gonna listen to this, and I don't give a shit about what you think. So I really like that, and I've seen her also I've seen her go into like tough rooms and audiences who like aren't ready to love her stuff, and I've seen her like win them, and I've seen her like put hecklers in their place.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Ariel Elias.
In 5th or 6th grade, they all got that lesson that the Jews killed Jesus. So suddenly I had all these kids come up to me who were like, you killed Jesus. And I was like, yeah, it was me. Like, you nailed it. The thing I never understood about that, though, was that the most angry kids were the most Christian. Do you guys see why that's weird? Because if you're a Christian, that means that you believe that Jesus died for your sins, and that's why you get to go to heaven, right? And I'm not criticizing your faith, by the way. If you're a Christian, I just want you to know, I think it's a beautiful faith. I'm super jealous that you have some. Or like, I have some faith. Like, I put this Goodwill dress on before I washed it. I just don't have faith in God. But if Jesus died for your sins, and that's why you get to go to heaven, and I killed Jesus, you don't get to be angry. I feel like all I can do is just say, you're welcome. That guy. I'm just saying, it's been 2,000 years. You can put a positive spin on that story. You could be like, Jesus died for your sins, and the Jews with the assist. You know? Negative thing.
So many encounters with audiences where I wasn't comfortable with them. The most recent one, we did a show in St. Simon's Island, Georgia, and everybody was maybe 60 or 70 years old. So it was this realization. I just changed all my jokes to being like, my parents once said, and just tried to talk about them as much as possible. There have been shows where I realized afterwards I really wanted someone to walk me to my car because I might have pissed off a couple of people in the audience. I talk about being Jewish a lot, which doesn't always go over well in very small towns in the South. Sometimes that can be a little tricky. Like I've been flipped off while I was telling jokes. It's not even an offensive joke. I think I've had some shows where I felt like my performance was so poor that I didn't want to stay around and look anybody in the eye.
I have a lot of medical issues though that I think makes it hard to meet guys. I have, I refer to it affectionately as adult acne. And my doctor's always like, that's not cute, it's herpes. You have to call it herpes. It's not as clever as you think that you're just calling it adult acne. Herpes just sounds so bad. Like, I feel like it wouldn't sound nearly as bad if it wasn't plural. You know, like if I was up here and I was like, I have a herp, you'd be like, oh my God, that's adorable. That's super cute. A lot of my friends have it. Yours do too, you just don't know. They'll come to me for advice sometimes. They're like, Ariel, how do you tell a guy who you're sleeping with that you have herpes? I'm like, oh, I bring him to a show and I do that joke. That's really all there is to it. Once this girl came up to me after a show, she was like, you don't really have herpes, do you? I was like, oh, you think that's just like a cute thing I'm making up to get guys? Like, it's not. I'm not faking this. It's not a pregnancy. Yeah. She was like, that's disgusting. I use the bathroom after you. I was like, how do you think I pee? You think I'm just like, like, can't. I'm very well behaved in there. I used to watch those Valtrex commercials and feel so embarrassed for the actors, like so humiliated, where I was like, where does your career have to be that you're willing to humiliate yourself and be in this commercial? But now all I can think is like, God, my career would really take off if Valtrex would sponsor me. Make that happen. I got it from my ex-boyfriend, by the way, so I did do something the Christian way. He heard that I was talking about herpes on stage. He called me up one day. He was like, I think it's so disgusting that you're talking about herpes on stage. I was like, how are you going to tell me it's disgusting? You gave it to me. He was like, yeah, but I don't talk about it. And I was like, yeah, I know. All right, you guys, thank you so much, Ariel.
I think New Orleans comedy is just going to keep growing and getting better. I think the one thing that we're lacking that would be really nice to have and would be a huge push would be a comedy club. I think that's the one thing that the scene is really lacking. Otherwise, I think it's just going to be great. Bigger names keep coming to visit and doing shows, and the comedians here keep getting better. And it'll also be nice if more comedians from New Orleans keep going on the road and making it known that New Orleans is like a really cool place to do comedy.
What I like about New Orleans comedy and what excites me about it is kind of an extension of the energy the city has and the attitude the city has to other arts, which is there's a high respect for DIY, for do-it-yourself energy, and if someone makes, say, a great art show but it's in an abandoned, condemned warehouse, but if you tell it to the right people and it finds its audience and they go there and they get moved by that art, then it works and it's sort of respected and held in the same regard as other good endeavors in the city.
I haven't done stand-up in other cities yet. I've done a lot of sketch and a lot of improv in other cities. So, you know, if people are going to see shows in Chicago, that's an established scene. And everyone thinks of Chicago as a comedy city. And everyone's like, oh, well, you got to go to Improv Olympic, or you got to go to Second City, or you got to go to, you know, they know the places. But here, there's this feeling of sort of passing along a secret. So I think national stand-ups come through and are like, oh, these are the places that you go to when you're in New Orleans. Or, you know, I'll meet people all the time who are like, oh, did you know that there's this show at Siberia? Or do you go to the Lost Love show? Or are you going to be on Beast? I just found out about Beast. So there's this feeling, I think, to the scene here that's almost like, you know, passing along a secret, which I like a lot. And I like that feeling of us all having to be on our game to establish the city as one of the next great comedy cities. I think we have the talent, and I think we have the audiences, and I think it's on us to just really kick ass every time we get up there. To be able to help grow that.
When I first started doing comedy in New Orleans, there was 2 open mics, one on a Wednesday and one on a Friday. And in the past 5 years, it's grown to where you can go up every single night of the week. So New Orleans comedy in 5 short years has gone from a place where you could do comedy once in a while to a place that is actually producing decent comedians, because it gives you time, and that's what you need to be a decent comedian, is time and a space to do it. And now you have that in New Orleans, whereas 5 years ago you didn't have that.
The shows are getting better, the talent is getting better, people are weeded out because they can't take it, and that's fine too. People are rising up because they can't help it. It's a great feeling to know that when you're working on your art, when you're working on what you want to do, there's a sort of a cadre of other people working on it too, and that they all share a goal, which is a vibrant comedy city.